Welcome to the video. We're going to be talking about kind of a lot of stuff today because there's so much going on in March, going into April, even. So we're just going to talk. My name is Katie, and let's just go ahead and jump into it. So let's start with Venus retrograde. Venus went retrograde in the sign of Aries on March 1st. Now, Venus retrogrades are pretty intense, specifically for Libra risings and Taurus risings, but also Taurus and Libra placements are also going to be affected because Libra is the ruling planet of Taurus and Libra. And I'm so sorry for the wind outside. It's really windy, and I'm sure you guys can hear that. I'm so sorry. It's so loud. But Venus retrograde brings a lot of review to those Venus areas. And Venus rules over a lot of different things, actually. And you'd think maybe it's just relationships, but it is more than that. It can be the aesthetics, what we like to be around, the friendship circles, of course, which does revolve or have to do with relationships. But it also has to do with wealth, because wealth kind of, in a Taurian way, supplies our comfort in what we like to be around. So that's still very Venusian. So in my notes, a lot of these things that we're going to be reviewing will be from the last time that Venus retrograded in Aries in 2018. So, I mean, I know for me, there's already a lot of big themes coming back from 2018. Um, and that's really cool, especially I'm sure if you have a lot of Aries placements. I do have a lot of Aries placements, specifically my Aries Venus. So that's gonna be specifically intense for us as well as Aries placements, and specifically Aries risings. um yeah, and anybody who has an angular house in Aries, like the 8th house, 4th house, 12th house, and such. Now, when Venus is more in Aries, it's going to be more of a conversation of relationships with yourself. How do you love yourself versus how you love others? Are you valuing you in your relationship? And how are you in your relationship with yourself? That relationship is so important because, I kind of hate I hate the saying you can't pour from an empty cup, because I need that saying in my life. You know what I mean? But it's so true. Aries does teach us the value of loving ourselves. But when Venus goes back into Pisces later on in the retrograde, it's going to shift. There's going to be more of a focus on humanity and community and our dreams and the underdogs as well. So the big picture of humanity, everyone. Um, and it will be more about how we love the collective. So we will get a review of how we love ourselves, and then how we're supposed to love others, and how we review that and learn from our experiences. And once again, our experiences, specifically probably from 2018, are gonna come back. So keep those lessons in mind as we're moving forward. I'd also keep in mind that this will probably disrupt some business. There will bring about like new opportunities, new disciplinaries around Venusian areas and business, along with the transits. Because when Venus transits or retrogrades back through the planets, it's going over again Neptune, the North Node, well. So there's going to be a lot going on again. A lot of what we just went through, we're going to immediately review again. So think about what we've been through in the last month or two. And then that's just going to be repeated, but in a reviewing sense. So retrogrades can be a little scary. A lot of people are afraid of them. And that's okay, because they bring around all of these lessons, and these lessons can be very intimidating. And reviewing our past isn't necessarily always fun. So it is a time for looking inward rather than acting externally. So it's a very intrinsic time for us. It's going to be a lot of dramatic change because Venus is retrograding along with Mercury, which we'll talk about in just a minute because we're wrapping up Venus here. But while Venus is going to be retrograding, is also going to be eclipse season, which we'll talk about after the Mercury retrograde a little bit. But we can't forget that I've learned a little bit about vertex recently, and that is a big point of change in a birth chart. And I hope I'm saying it right. It is something a little new to me. So Um, but we've been seeing a lot of action with things going over vertex, and it's, on the latest early degrees of Aries. And, Venus has been going over it, Neptune's moving close to it, the North Node has been dancing all over it. So, there's just a lot of dramatic change. So, I kind of blame that, or not blame that, but that's probably due to Vertex. So that's really cool. Some advice for Venus retrograde: you're not gonna want to try to start a lot of new things. Don't be hard on yourself. Don't try to like win in the rat race kind of situation. This time, the best thing to do is to write it out and to find some kind of piece and artistic expression that serves you or serves the collective. Especially serves you when it's more in Aries, than maybe more collective focused, humanitarian focused when it's in Pisces. So try not to make big new starts. Try to be very reflective so you can take that action when things slow down mid-April ish. But still, so much is changing in 2025. We're just not really going to catch a break. But this month is probably, in my opinion, the most intense month of 2025. But I don't know, I might change my mind. But it is, regardless, a very compressed and focused energy because there's just so much happening in Pisces and Aries, and then the retrogrades. But with that, let's go ahead and talk about Mercury retrograde, which will also be starting in Aries, but most of it will be in Pisces, and this will be starting on March 15th. So stay calm, I think, is the best thing when it comes to Mercury retrograde, because Mercury retrograde is the most like fear mongered when it comes to the retrograde because it happens the most often. But I think because it happens the most often, we should be the most, or least afraid of it because it happens the most, because so we're the most used to it. So Mercury retrograde, travel won't be on time. It'll be funky. So, make sure you're being safe out there, especially while it's in Aries. Road rage, Mercury or Mars, and Mars, both of them. But specifically for right now, when Mercury is in Aries, I just always think about road rage and people yelling. And, Aries is very action oriented. So please be safe out there, especially when you're on the roads or interacting in heated arguments and things like that. So stay calm and think before you speak. Again, with that review, really be conscious about your actions because there is such an inclination for confusion. And then we already have Venus retrograde confusing our relationships and those types of things. Like, people are coming back relationship wise, exes, and it's more than usual for a Mercury retrograde. We're not just thinking about the general friendships or things that might come back. Like, random people come back during Mercury retrograde. It's not always exes, but Venus retrograde will specifically make you think about those very deep relationships, or even, really intimate ones. Even, it could even be a best friend. But this just deepens that. So, more than likely, if you're not one of those people that generally have people come around for retrogrades, it will at least be intense, more intense, specifically if you have, Aries or Pisces placements. Like, my Aries Venus is just going crazy right now. With a lot of thoughts about other people and my relationship. So Aries Venuses are specifically going through, along with Pisces Venus, is really thinking about what we want and how we're going to enact that whenever retrogrades are over. So, but back to Mercury retrograde. This is just also, again, reminder, this is not a good time to start new projects. Hold off on those. You can think up and have all the ideas. This is a great time to be creative and come up with ideas. And get a notebook, write all those things down. You can paint and write and be creative, do all the things, but don't start big practical things that need like a really firm foundation type of things. Don't start those right now. Come up with the plans, be creative, that kind of thing. And really use your mind. This is a time for funky thinking. Retrogrades, literally, when retrogrades happen, the planets just like do funky things. Like, they kind of like spin backwards. So, like, things are backwards and funky. And let's go with the flow. Decide to be a little funky, a little different. Everyone is being a little funky and confusing right now. So, might as well, right? Um, but another thing here is really, especially when it's in Pisces, is finding peace, making space for that peace in your mind. And when it's in Pisces, it'll be meditation based or giving back to the community, sharing love in relationships, even if it's confusing during that time. Um, spend time with people that have things in common with you, and maybe think outside of the box with them. But specifically, when Mercury retrograde will be starting in Aries, find some kind of physical practice, whether that be going to the gym, taking a walk, going to yoga, doing aerial arts. I don't know. I'm doing a hoop, aerial hoop lyra class tonight. I haven't done that in 8 years. That's part of my Aries return retrograde because I haven't done this stuff since 2018. That's freaking cool. And you can't tell me it's not. Okay, moving forward. Again, I know we keep kind of going back and forth with Venus and Mercury here, but a lot of their stuff just kind of melts together because they are in the same signs of Aries and Pisces, just dance in there with these retrogrades and being funky with their energy. Um, but again, find that peace within your body through movement, and also find that peace through extension of love and relationships. And oh my god, that wind is so loud. I can't wait to see how loud it's gonna be in the video. I'm so sorry, guys. Let's see, what do my notes say? Okay, be careful, because if you fuck around right now, you will find out with these retrogrades and eclipses, especially this eclipse coming up. It's gonna be absolutely nuts, and time is gonna fly really, really fast. It will feel like a snap of a finger once it's over, but when we're in it, it's gonna feel so confusing and like we're in some kind of hole. Because eclipses really are like a weird liminal, like timeless, weird space because there's so many things changing during that time. Traditionally, eclipses are known to be extremely catastrophic and bring around tragic events, and that's why, because they're just such a catalyst for change. So I did flip my notes over. So we're gonna start talking about the full moon eclipse in Virgo. So very detail oriented. Um, with the climate of how things are going, and I'm going to try to stay a little non-political. We'll see if I do that. I've been trying to do that with my videos lately, um, and we'll see how that goes. But an eclipse in Virgo, these changes are going to be very particular and pragmatic, disciplined, and there's a word I'm trying to think of, a little stingy. So the emotional place that a lot of these changes are coming from will be a little stingy, I think is that's the word I was thinking of. So but the notes that I have written down for like the themes of this eclipse is disciplined, funky, stingy, and aggressive change. And then I kind of say it in different ways here. Growing in funky spaces, and the imagery I gave here is a flower in concrete. You know how sometimes you'll be walking on the sidewalk and then there'll just be plants growing out of the cracks. And that's kind of the energy I get from this full moon eclipse coming up, is thriving in spaces where you may be suppressed, or just there's so much going on where you feel like there's concrete around you, and it's hard to get nutrients and stuff, but we can still rise above that and grow and get the nutrients from the sun and from higher purpose, divinity, whatever you believe in. I also wrote down this is going to be a dreamy, dramatic, and confusing time full of change. I don't know how many times I can say change in this video, but lots and lots and lots of change. And there's a lot of these planets are transiting everything, like because of that conglomeration that's going on in Pisces and Aries, conjunct Saturn and Pisces. So a lot of this change will be kind of disciplinary, but in kind of a weird, watery kind of way, because Saturn in Pisces isn't going to be like Capricorn. Like Saturn in Capricorn, that would be very disciplinary, very da da da, things in a row, Saturn in Pisces isn't really like that. It's a little bit more flowy discipline, a little bit more wishy washy. So we can expect a little bit of these changes to be somewhat wishy washy. So keep that in mind. Be disciplined, be refined spiritually, and choose to put your energy where it matters. It's okay to be stingy with your emotional energy when things are very big and full of change. So I think this is also, it's okay to be reserved with your energy too, with Saturn in Pisces and this moon in Virgo. So it's gonna be something that might be a little dramatic too, because of this like dramatic discipline change. So like I've already said a lot of these words, but that, those are the descriptive words that I think make a lot of sense for this celestial event. But moving on with a lot of the things that are transiting the sun is also going to be conjunct Neptune, which adds to the things that I just talked about when it comes to kind of the watery things. And it's also going to be, these changes will be a little confusing. We might not necessarily know where we're headed when it comes to the changes we're trying to make in our lives right now. We have a good picture, a good mental idea. We're starting to refine it with Saturn. The sun is coming in and illuminating it with the moon, and things are very beautiful, but we need a plan. Moon in Virgo. We need pragmatic action. Saturn. And then to make that make more sense, that pragmatic action, the conglomeration of Saturn and the Sun conjunction does trine Mars and Cancer. So there's motivation for us to be cozy and safe, and that kind of push from Cancer that's very water, moving water. So we're really trying to move forward, especially in our spiritual spaces, or religious even, or depending on where Aries and Pisces is in your chart, because that will dramatically change. If it's in the 8th or 2nd house, that's going to be finance related. The 3rd and 9th house, that's going to be knowledge and communication based. 4th, 10th, home and work. So 6th, 12th, spirituality, physical health, so like metaphysical and physical, and so on. Like, first and second, self and other people. So really think about the house that the lunar nodes are in, so you can know how these changes are going to affect you. And the nodes are kind of like in a weird little transitionary phase still right now. That's why the new moon eclipse is going to be in Aries. But then when it comes the fall, the fall eclipse season, I just had to double check in my head that I was saying the right thing. It will be firmly in Virgo and Pisces. So this is kind of a closing up of a lot of chapters for these last like year and a half to 2 years or so. So also think about the things that you want to close, you want to end when it comes to moving forward. You have to, end a chapter before you can really move forward. And this is also going to be aspecting Uranus, but not as dramatically as the last full moon in Leo. That was intense. That was so crazy. It was very funky change. And there's going to be some of that again. This change will be a little goofy, a little out there, left field, maybe like what the fuck even. And when it comes to the moon, it has a lot of similar transits that just a little different communication, but same theme as we're saying here. But like the motivations are more emotional. So this change, there's maybe a little bit of emotional acting out, and emotions that are a little delusionary. But also this can add to our dreams and our planning. So keep that in mind. Astrology is really great. I like to say that a lot. It just explains what is, and what is super gray. It's not like the world is not extremely black and white. It's a lot more gray than I think people expect, and astrology is that way too. But Mercury in Aries, this is the day before it goes retrograde, I'm pretty sure. So, and it is conjunct Venus retrograde in Aries. So this is just revving up a lot of confusion, a lot of blunt communication that's probably going to start a lot of arguments, and it's just revving up a lot of that, what we're going to review, and a lot of the past, and just funky, that retrograding energy. So that's kind of what's going on there. So keep that in mind. Think before you speak. You might avoid an argument. So I just, especially when Mercury in Aries, I said that, but I'm going to say it again. Mercury in Aries, confusion, arguments, direct communication that you don't necessarily think through. So if you just think before you speak, take the time it takes, you will probably have less time explaining. Cancer is a pretty big player because of how it aspects the sun, the moon, and Saturn specifically. So there's a lot of refining emotional expression and action, and also how we maneuver our ego and what we know to be true, because we're also refining what we know to be true with that sun conjunct Saturn, especially spiritually and religiously, depending on how you have your outlook. Like this will also be refining home values, and this motivation will be coming from a traditional place that is comfort motivated and also emotionally motivated, because Cancer is a very reactive water sign and water's emotions. So there's a strong sense of emotional ego and self in all of these things. So really think, again, think before you act, because this is a really reactive time. It's kind of also gives me like passive aggressive energy really strongly with these transits. So try your best not to be passive aggressive. It's not beneficial. It's better just to say how you feel, in my opinion. So we already kind of talked a little bit about Saturn and Pisces and all of the major players here. Refining of emotion and the self, motivation for change and trying new things. I would definitely, if you are not doing something physical right now, I know we already talked about this, but again, emphasize on trying to do something with your body, whether that is just taking a walk, whether that is just meditating and sitting with your thoughts. Just do something like that. I promise it will help you during this eclipse season and retrograde season, because this is really intense. It's a lot. So we talked about a lot of things today. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate it, especially if you made it all the way through the video. If you would be so kind, I would appreciate a thumbs up. And if you want to keep seeing more from me, hit the subscribe button. I would truly appreciate it. You're helping me like fulfill my dreams, and this is so crazy just to talk about the stars with you. It's absolutely so much fun, and it's what I love to do. So if you have any questions or anything you'd like to discuss, please drop it down in the comments. Or if you already feel how Venus retrograde is affecting you, because it's already retrograding, and if you already feel all this eclipse energy coming in and Mercury retrograde, tell me all about it. I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And with that, I hope you guys have an amazing, crazy time full of change, and please stay safe. All right, thank you so much. Bye.